Now that we've had our fun with firewalls, let's look at some additional security tooling that NSX provides. This is where we're going to get into our advanced threat prevention capabilities, including the intrusion detection and prevention system, malware prevention, NSX intelligence, network detection and response, or NDR. These are all very much advanced threat capabilities that we can use to further secure our data centers. Now, we're going to break all this up into a number of videos. We're going to talk here and in the next video about intrusion detection and prevention. We'll have some videos about NSX application platform, which will become an infrastructure dependency for malware prevention, for intelligence, for NDR. And so we'll have separate videos about each of those things in kind as well. So there's a whole lot of stuff coming up because NSX is a major, major security platform at this point with a ton of different capabilities. So let's start with the intrusion detection and prevention system in NSX. And, we're going to talk about use cases. We're going to talk about some basic terminology if you happen to not be familiar with intrusion detection and prevention. We're going to talk about the architecture of our distributed intrusion prevention system. We'll talk about how to configure it and how to look at the events and all that kind of stuff. We are going to break this up into a couple of videos, so we will take a break in the midst of all this at some point so that you can kind of get some rest and back out of this and let some of this sort of digest in your head. So what do we have going on with the distributed intrusion detection and prevention system? Well, an intrusion detection system detects malicious traffic on the network. An intrusion prevention system, or IPS, can prevent, right? It can match that malicious traffic and block it and do something about it. We have intrusion detection and intrusion prevention available inside of NSX in a distributed fashion. These actually work alongside the distributed firewall in many respects and gives us an east-west protection, right? I can protect virtual machines from threats from each other. And the really nice thing about this is distributed across your infrastructure. So unlike maybe a traditional intrusion detection and prevention appliance, as we grow our infrastructure, we increase capacity for our intrusion detection and prevention system. Now, why do we want to use this? Well, because we simply want more protection than just a firewall. Vulnerabilities exist in software, for example, and we can use approved or standardized ports and protocols to move malformed data requests into an application to compromise that application. Well, an intrusion detection or an intrusion prevention system can at least notify you about that kind of behavior, and intrusion prevention can potentially even do something about that. So this gives us another way to protect our data center, another layer of security in our infrastructure that we have available. We also have, in addition to a traditional signature-based intrusion detection and prevention capability, we also have some behavioral things that we can watch for within the context of our intrusion detection and prevention system. So, we have authentication failure rates. Somebody's trying to brute force a server, perhaps. We could potentially detect that and actually notify you or prevent that from happening again. So we can watch for different behaviors that maybe don't classify as a specific piece of malware trying to attack something, or a specific vulnerability trying to be exploited. Now, what do we need for the distributed intrusion detection and prevention system to work? Well, first and foremost, we need appropriate licensing, right? So the distributed intrusion detection and prevention system comes with our threat prevention and advanced threat prevention add-ons to your NSX license. So this is an additional license we have to worry about. This is not something we have to separately install. It's just part of the host preparation process. But we do have to turn this on, right? This is not, if you have simply deployed NSX, the distributed intrusion detection and prevention system is not turned on. You have to go in and enable it. And we'll see that process here in just a little bit. And then we also have to make sure that the NSX manager has internet access to reach out to the NSX Threat Intelligence Cloud service to download the signatures that we're going to use. Now, speaking of those signatures, we have signatures that cover all kinds of potentially malicious traffic, and we've got them classified into a number of different severity levels, from critical down to suspicious. And the signature itself, as we see here, bears all kinds of detail, much of which is exposed out through the NSX UI as we look through the signatures, if we choose to do so. So we have a lot of information right here about the signatures, even without digging into the signature file. We choose which signatures we are going to look for by way of intrusion detection and prevention profiles, IDS/IPS profiles. And so we can create profiles to tune what we want to watch for one application or another, perhaps. We do have a default IDS/IPS profile created once, right in NSX, and we can kind of look at this here, and it just looks at critical severity signatures, right? So we can filter by signature severity or by product affected or CVSS or things like that. Now, we're going to manage the IDS/IPS with policies and rules. Very, very, very much in the same way we manage our distributed firewall, through policies and rules. And the constructs we use are going to be the same here as well, more or less. The big difference is the security profile. So instead of having a context profile that we could look at, we have a security profile, which is going to be which IDS/IPS profile we assign to this particular match. And then we have our mode instead of an action. And our mode is going to be either detect or detect and prevent. So two different options there for our IDS/IPS policies. Or rules, more precisely. Anyway, rules and our IDS/IPS profiles pull together signatures. We get the signatures from the NSX Threat Intelligence Cloud service. Now, the signatures don't originate in that cloud service. We actually have a signature curator service that we operate, an IDS curator that VMware operates, that ingests signature data from SecureWorks, from TrustWave, from LastLine. And we take all of these signatures and like I said, we curate them. We deduplicate. We make sure that we have only the highest fidelity signatures so that we can help minimize potential false positives. And those signatures, that signature bundle, is sent to the Threat Intelligence Cloud, and that's what we download from NSX Manager from the Threat Intelligence Cloud. NSX Manager will program through the control plane that signature set into the data plane so that the IDS/IPS can actually have signatures in the data plane to match upon. And so here we kind of see the architecture of the intrusion detection and prevention system. So very much like the distributed firewall, we are going to, in the data plane, program VSIP. We're going to use that to kind of match traffic, but we also have an IDS engine in the data plane that is going to give us that match context, that IDS/IPS profile context. Now, configuring the distributed IDS, in other words, enabling this, we have to go into our security tab in the NSX UI. We have to go to IDS/IPS and malware prevention. So we'll talk more about malware prevention later on. We're going to revisit this screen when we get there. But we have some shared settings because IDS/IPS and malware prevention are kind of brought together a little bit here in the UI. And we have a settings tab. And when we go to that settings tab, there's a shared set of settings where we can go on and enable the intrusion detection and prevention system. Now, we can enable this for just standalone hosts or for individual clusters if that's so desired. So we've got some granularity in where this is enabled. You don't have to turn this on through your entire infrastructure if that's not something that's desirable. Then we're going to go into the IDS IPS tab from under settings, where we can start looking at our signatures, right? We can choose to upload our signatures manually if we have to download them. Say we're in a well-protected site. We can see when the signatures were last updated. We can choose to auto-update our signatures. We can just kind of manage our signature set here. Now, I can also go in and globally manage the signature set, where I can perhaps enable and disable certain signatures. I can change the action for different signatures. And the action here tells us what needs to be done by the firewall when we have a rule set to prevent, right? Detect and prevent. And so if I really want to prevent a particular attack, the rule has to be set to either drop or reject. Or the signature rather has to be set to drop or reject. If the signature is simply set to alert, well, we're not going to block anything. We're simply going to send an alert to NSX Manager. So there's a lot of nuance that could be enabled in the signature set simply by manipulating this global set. Now, personally, I would recommend that you leave the global set alone and manage individual custom IDS IPS profile signature sets, which we can do, right? We absolutely can do. We're going to likely have a number of IDS IPS profiles, probably for different application-centric threat prevention. And we're going to use these custom profiles to minimize the number of things we're looking at. This increases traffic match efficiency, and it minimizes false positives by looking only at very, very targeted types of potential attacks. And when I build my profiles, right, I can filter out my list of signatures based on criticality, based on application type, based on CVSS, etc. And then I can manage that set of signatures inside this profile. So we can override what the global signature set says by changing the profile signature set, right? And I think from a practical perspective, this is probably where we would want to override some of those defaults. So we're going to take a break here. Right, we've been talking for a little while. We've talked about why we're going to use an IDS IPS, what kinds of things we can do with it. We've talked about our profiles and custom profiles. We talked about how to enable the intrusion detection and prevention system. Now, when we come back, we'll talk about configuring rules and working with it and all that kind of stuff. So take a break and come back in a few minutes. We'll see you there.